Hey, Harry, we're just going to start with Committee of Adjustment first, so you can keep your video off until regular session if you'd like.
Affirmative, thank you.
We are ready to go, Your Worship, and a reminder to everybody to please use your microphones.
Yep. Good evening. Welcome to the Committee of Adjustment. It is Thursday, May the 16th, 2024, 6:30 p.m., and I will call this meeting to order. I'll remind members of the Committee of Adjustment of disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. See none. Move on with adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting. That would be the Committee of Adjustment meeting held April the 18th, 2024. Anyone note any errors or omissions? If not, then I would appreciate a mover and seconder for the following: that the minutes from the Committee of Adjustment meeting held April the 18th, 2024 be approved as presented. Committee Member Weiser? Committee Member Froese will second. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on with the first application is minor variance application A-05/24 Mauer at 56954 Eden Line. The purpose of this variance is to permit a maximum lot coverage of 25%, whereas section 23.13.4.4 of the zoning bylaw requires a maximum lot coverage of 15%. The proposed variance is required to facilitate future additions, expansions to the metal manufacturing business for an additional 4,635.5 square meters or 49,896.1 square feet, a ground floor area to the already existing 6,486 square meter or 69,814.7 square foot ground floor area. The subject lands are located at 56954 Eden Line, north side and west of Plank Road in the hamlet of Eden. The effect of this variance is to permit an increased maximum lot coverage to accommodate future additions, expansions to the existing metal manufacturing business on the subject property. At this point, we will entertain a staff presentation. That's report DS 3424 by Margaret Underhill, Secretary Treasurer, regarding minor variance A-0524 MG Leasing Inc. in care of Phil Mauer at 56954 Eden Line. Marg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the report before you notes that Grassmere Construction Limited, on behalf of MG Leasing Inc., Phil Mauer Associates, has submitted a minor variance application. The property is at 56954 Eden Line, as already stated. And the purpose is to increase their maximum lot coverage from 15% to 25%. And the effect of the variance is to allow for an increased maximum lot coverage to accommodate future additions and expansions. The owner wishes to construct an addition of 696 square meters on the northeast side in the immediate future, with a future building addition of 700 square meters to be constructed in 2028, proposed in the north portion. And the relocation of an existing coverall warehouse to the south, and a future building expansion to connect the coverall warehouse and the existing main industrial building. The planner's memorandum attached, dated May 7th, 2024, outlines the full analysis of the application, along with the 4 tests for variances. Staff and planner concur the application meets the criteria and recommends granting the minor variance to, again, permit a maximum lot coverage of 25%, whereas the site-specific zoning presently for this property is a maximum of 15%. I leave it with you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Moving on to presentations by the applicant or the agent. Do either of you wish to have?
I'll start it off.
Okay.
You gentlemen will probably provide the real information. I think I'm on now, am I? Yep. Dave Rowe, professional planner, who prepared the planning justification report on behalf of the applicant. As outlined in my report, in my professional opinion, they do meet the tests under the Planning Act for a minor variance. it was also echoed in the planning report prepared by your planning consultant as well. I understand the kind of the history of the property, and I understand why there was a 15% lot coverage. And basically that covered what was existing at the time. And whereas your normal lot coverage for this type of rural industrial use is up to 50%, which is in line with other municipalities as well. So I think the request to go to 25% is very reasonable to say the least. If there's any, I guess, detailed questions about the what's being proposed, these gentlemen can add to it.
Okay, thank you for that. Before you leave, David, make sure you sign in, please.
Oh, I got to sign it. Yeah.
Sign it. While David's doing that, do you have additional comments you wish to make on the application, or just available for questions? Okay, before we get to the questions, are there any public submissions?
There have been none, Mr. Chair.
Not seeing anyone interested, so we'll turn it over to the committee questions and discussion. Does any member of the committee have any questions regarding this proposal? Comments, discussion? Committee member Weiser.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question. I know the last edition that we approved, there was some questions surrounding noise from the neighbors.
Mhm.
And there was quite a bit of work that you did for noise mitigation. And I just wondered if there had been any future comments following that since this application. I don't think there has been, but I haven't received any feedback and it seems to be working well.
There was
Yeah, well, can I get you to come up to the podium, please? And since we're broadcasting.
There was just some signage added to the sides where we drive in our steel trucks, no idling. But other than that, we constructed berms and new fencing. And future plan is to fix up the fence along Eden line, Plank Road on my properties. Needs some repair.
Any additional questions, discussion? Okay, just as a brief comment, I think any responsible development is good. It's encouraging to see that the business is growing. And providing the committee here is willing to pass this along, I wish you all the best of luck. Move on with the decision of the committee. We have a proposed motion that reads that the Committee of Adjustment Secretary Treasurer's Report DS 3424 regarding the MG Leasing Inc. minor variance be received. And that the Committee of Adjustment considered all written and oral submissions received on this application, the effect of which helped the committee to make an informed decision. And whereas the committee agrees that the proposed variance as presented meets section 45(1) of the Planning Act and is considered minor. Therefore, application A 0524 submitted by MG Leasing Inc., Bill Mauer, pursuant to section 45 of the Planning Act for a minor variance is granted to allow relief from Municipality of Bayham zoning bylaw Z 456/2003 to permit a maximum lot coverage of 25%, whereas section 23.13.4.4 of the zoning bylaw requires a maximum lot coverage of 15%. Do we have a mover and seconder? Committee member Chilcott and committee member Weisler will second. All in favor? And that is carried. Which brings us to the second application, minor variance application A 0624 Thiessen at 12 McNeil Court. Purpose of this variance is to permit a maximum building height of 8.3 meters for this development of a new single detached dwelling, whereas section 10.5 of the zoning bylaw requires a maximum building height of 7 meters. The subject lands are located at 12 McNeil Court, east of Elizabeth Street in the village of Port Burwell. The effect of this variance is to permit an increased maximum building height to accommodate a new single detached dwelling on the vacant subject property. And at this point, we will have the staff presentation, that is report DS 3524 by Margaret Underhill, Secretary Treasurer, regarding the minor variance A 0624 Decent, J&M at 12 McNeil Court. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. John and Mary Thiessen have submitted a minor variance application for their property at 12 McNeil Court. They are in the process of applying to build a new house at this location. And the minor variance is to address the maximum building height proposed at 8.3 meters, whereas our zoning maximizes it at 7 meters. The effect of the variance being granted this evening, and that's under consideration, is to permit that increased building height, and they will be able to proceed with building permit for a new house. So included in the report, I just have a section there, what the defined height is in our zoning bylaw, just so the committee understands where this is coming from. So it's a little bit of information. As well, the planner's memo is attached. It's dated May the 7th and offers a full analysis of the test for variances. And staff and planner do concur the application meets the criteria. We recommend a minor variance to section 10.5 to permit the construction of a single detached dwelling with a defined building height of 8.3 meters. And I leave it with you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that. Is the applicant or agent present? Do they wish to make a few remarks or a presentation? Hard to see behind the screen.
Yeah.
Hi.
There's one.
No remarks?
No, we were just having a hard time getting a two-story on there with, that.
Yeah. Come on up to the microphone, just sign in while you're there, and please, we welcome your comments.
All right. Well, good evening. We were just finding it hard to put two-story on there with the roof style that we preferred, and that's why it ended up being higher than what we anticipated.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. Any public submissions? Anyone wishing to speak to it?
I have no written submissions, Mr. Chair.
Let's open it up to committee questions and discussion. Does any member of the committee have any questions regarding this application? Fairly straightforward. And just to change things up, we'll have Megan read the motion.
That the Committee of Adjustment Secretary Treasurer's Report DS 3524 regarding the Thiessen minor variance be received, and that the Committee of Adjustment considered all written and oral submissions received on this application, the effect of which helped the committee to make an informed decision. And whereas the committee agrees that proposed variance as presented meets section 45.11 of the Planning Act and is considered minor. Therefore, application A 0624 submitted by John and Mary Thiessen pursuant to section 45 of the Planning Act for a minor variance is granted to allow relief from Municipality of Bayham zoning bylaw number Z456 2003 to permit a maximum building height of 8.3 meters for the development of a new single detached dwelling, whereas section 10.5 of the zoning bylaw requires a maximum building height of 7 meters.
Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Committee member Chilcott and committee member Prose. Will second. All in favor? That is carried. Moving on with the third application. This is for minor variance application A 0724 Thiessen at 2 McNeil Court. The purpose of this variance is to grant relief from the municipal zoning bylaw regulations for the development of a new single detached dwelling on the subject property located at 2 McNeil Court, east of Elizabeth Street in the village of Port Burwell. 1. Section 10.5 to permit a maximum building height of 8 meters, whereas 7 meters is required, and added. section 4.26 to permit a front yard encroachment of 0.6 meters into the required 7-meter front yard depth for a roof porch exceeding 1 story in height. The effect of this variance is to permit an increased maximum building height and front yard encroachment to accommodate a new single detached dwelling on the vacant subject property. We'll now entertain the staff presentation, which includes report DS 3624 by Margaret Underhill, Secretary Treasurer, regarding minor variance A 0724 Thiessen J&K at 2 McNeil Court. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Jake and Katharina Thiessen have submitted a minor variance application for their property at 2 McNeil Court, again with the intention of building a new dwelling. They're going through the minor variance process to address the over height. Again, they are looking at a increased height, this time at 8 meters for this property, whereas 7 is required in the bylaw. Also, second point, they are looking for a variance on a front yard encroachment of 0.6 meters into the required 7-meter front yard depth for a roofed porch exceeding 1 story in height. The effect of the variance will be to allow the increased building height and to allow the encroachment into the front yard. Again, I've included the information regarding defined height for the committee's information. You must be satisfied with the 4 tests of minor variance. The planner's memorandum dated May 7th does outline that full analysis of the 4 tests and the variances that are required. Staff and planner concur the application meets their criteria. Recommend the minor variance to address section 10.5 for the height and section 4.26 to address the front yard encroachment. And I leave it with you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Is the applicant or agent present tonight to make any comments? Okay. Public submissions. I would note you have 1 email received.
Yes, Mr. Chair, there was an email received this afternoon and circulated to the committee as soon as it was received. There is a objection from a neighbor with the address of 1049 Elizabeth Street. The information in that objection is before you. I will leave it with that for you.
All right. Going to ask, have all the committee members had opportunity to see that piece of correspondence? I'll admit I have not.
See it either. Didn't show up in my email.
Can we take a minute and just circulate for people to have a chance to read?
Absolutely.
Like, rather than us reading it out on the record, and I don't know if that's appropriate, but. Right on. Thank you for that.
Thank
Okay, I assume one question that I'm going to put forward, and I think I know the answer to this, but if the desire is for a higher pitched roof, that would change the requirements for a higher roof line.
That's correct.
Okay,
I will note also for the committee that McNeil Court is a plan of subdivision,
Mhm.
and it was approved for smaller lot sizes. They are approved for a minimum lot area of 400 square meters, whereas a regular lot is 800 square meters. It was also approved for a minimum lot frontage of 11 meters, where the regular is 15 on full services. And they are also approved for a maximum building coverage of 40%, whereas the regular is 30%. But those are all approved through the plan of subdivision, so they were intended to be more intensified lots
All right.
in that area. So in saying that, there are some house designs that will need to have a higher pitch. They're fitting something on a smaller lot.
Right.
Therefore, your roof's going higher. I believe that is what we're dealing with on these two similar applications. It's,
I concur.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion points from members of the committee? Deputy, excuse me, committee member Weiser?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So the difference here is 3.28 feet higher than what's allowed, so and you already made the
Yep.
comment that it's more of a roof pitch as opposed to actual height of the building itself. It's the roof. Well, I guess.
if I may
Sorry.
just jump in.
Yeah,
We go back to the defined height, and defined height is the midpoint between eaves and peak. So it's
Right.
not to the rooftop that we're talking.
right.
Defined height is midway between the eaves and the peak. So that's where we're dealing with this restriction.
Thank you.
Okay, does that help? Committee member Chilcott?
Thank you. That just confused me a little bit. So the total height of the building then is changed by 3.2 feet or double?
Height is defined, it goes from grade and it goes to the midpoint between the eaves and your peak. Okay, so we've got eaves where your eaves trough, we'll call it,
Right, so
okay,
grade
your
that.
roof, beginning of your roof.
Peak.
Then you've got your peak, the very top of the peak. Height is defined as the midpoint. So
Right,
these
but then
measurements are
taking the
midpoint from
overall
grade.
measurement of The house then, what does that increase the overall measurement of the house so that you go right to the peak?
It would be in the diagram, I don't have that number, but we're dealing with the defined height. Give us, I don't think, Mr. Chair, they give us the actual height to the top of the peak.
I'm just curious because 3 feet doesn't seem like much, but if the overall height is increased by 6 feet, that seems like, you know
Well,
what I'm saying? That when you're looking out, you're looking up.
Still 3 feet.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. It's just steeper pitch roof.
Right.
All right. And as Secretary Treasurer's already highlighted, that the area itself was in the plan of subdivision for a higher density.
I
Okay.
understand that.
Yep.
No, I was just with the roof. Okay, sorry. Just gotta get it in my head, okay? If it's halfway between and you go up 3 feet, then that means the other half is gonna go up 3 feet, does it not?
Well, yeah,
Yeah, okay, that's what I wanted to find out,
Yeah.
6 feet, right?
but keep in mind that this one's for 8 meters and we just approved one for 8.3 meters.
No, I know.
Are we, any more questions or are we ready for the decision? I'll read the motion. The Committee of Adjustment Secretary Treasurer's Report DS 3624 regarding the Thiessen minor variance be received, and that the Committee of Adjustment considered all written and oral submissions received on this application, the effect of which helped the committee to make an informed decision. And whereas the committee agrees that the proposed variance as presented meets section 45.1.1 of the Planning Act and is considered minor. Therefore, application A 0724 submitted by Jake and Katharina Thiessen pursuant to section 45 of the Planning Act for a minor variance is granted to allow relief from Municipality of Bayham zoning bylaw number Z 456, 2003 to permit a maximum building height of 8 meters for the development of a new single detached dwelling, whereas section 10.5 of the zoning bylaw requires a maximum building height of 7 meters. Section 4.26 to permit a front yard encroachment of 0.6 meters into the required 7 meters front yard setback for a roof porch exceeding 1 story in height. We have a mover and seconder for that. Committee member Emerson and committee member Froese will second. All in favor? Oh, hey, okay, quick. That's carried. Thank you. All right, the adjournment motion that the Committee of Adjustment meeting for consideration of minor variance applications A 0524, A 0624, and A 724 be adjourned at 6:56 PM. And that in accordance with the regulations of the Planning Act, notices of decision be circulated by the Secretary Treasurer accordingly. Mover and seconder, please. Committee member Emerson and committee member Weisler, all in favor. And we're carried. We are adjourned. Got 1 minute.
We're ready to go.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular session of council. It is Thursday, May the 16th, 2024, 7 p.m., and I will call this meeting to order. I will remind members of any disclosures of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 12.2A.
Thank you.
I am the landowner of this application.
Okay, thank you for that. Section 3, review of items not listed on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have one tonight. It's report FR 0224 from the fire chief regarding procurement and repair update on the pumpers.
All right, thank you. Section 4, announcements from council members. Any announcements this evening? Councilor Emerson.
Through your worship, so everyone's aware and welcome. There's a series of fundraisers for the Lighthouse that our nonprofit has organized for the summer, the church music in Vienna. It's myself, my wife, and Ken Coco, good friend. We plan a series of 5 concerts this summer and intend to send all the proceeds for to Port Burroughs Historical Society for them to use as fit whenever we come up with some kind of plan or moving forward with the restoring the lighthouse.
All right, thank you for that.
First concert, May 24th. It will be myself and my band, and we're going to feature our original music that we're about to release on an album, followed up with some friends for some classic music, classic rock.
All right, thank you for that. Any
you.
additional announcements from anyone? Councilor Chilcott.
Thank you. I just want to remind everyone that Edison Fest in Vienna is June 1st. Opening ceremony start at 10 a.m. So hopefully everyone can come out and have a good time.
All right, anyone else? All right, I would add that on June the 8th is the grand reopening of the Marine Museum from 2 to 4 p.m. Display's been shifted around, so it'd be a new look to the museum. And I invite everyone to come down and have an opportunity to take a look at your municipal museum. That's June the 8th. Come on in. Nice to see chambers filling in. There are chairs. Help yourself. Yeah, we haven't seen the chambers this full for a long time. Glad people are taking an interest. Either that or we are really in trouble.
Yeah.
I believe it's Councilor Emerson's band.
Maybe that's what it is.
It probably is.
Yeah, it probably is. Perfect.
Bring your tomatoes.
All right, this evening, we're going to move on with section 6, delegations. First, we have Vincent Lizotti. Lizotte?
Oui, c'est un autre français.
Okay, regarding the 2018 Municipal Energy Plan, Local Action Plan for Greenhouse Gas Emissions. Welcome.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Mayor, Council, appreciate you allowing me to do this delegation. I have a background in mental health and have been a resident in the area for a few years. So I'm here to address the Council's participation in the Partners for Climate Protection Program, as noted in the 2018 Municipal Energy Plan, Local Action Plan on greenhouse gas emissions. I couldn't find the original motion, but asked the very kind clerk to pull it up for us whenever we can find it. So the energy plan references actions required to achieve zero emissions targets to address a climate emergency based on humanity's burning of fossil fuels. So the origin of the program is from '92. The late Brian Mulrooney signed on to Canada's Agenda 21. In '94, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities created the Partners for Climate Protection Program and sent a primer to all Canadian municipalities, subtitled Promoting Sustainable Development Through Local Strategic Action. Sustainable development's a term coined by the Brundtland Commission. Quote, land cannot be treated as an ordinary asset controlled by individuals, and public control of land use is indispensable to save the resources for future generations. Page 9 of the primer provides a flowchart of how Agenda 21 would be implemented through Canadian municipalities. And a copy would be provided after the deputation. Notice the means of implementation, promotion of education, public awareness, training, providing information for decision-making, and transfer of environmental sound technologies, so approved technologies. So the Partners for Climate Protection Program is a means of implementing Agenda 21 or the UN directives. The program's aim is to achieve net zero emissions, which means that our economy either emits no greenhouse gases or offsets its emissions through carbon taxes and credits. The 5-milestone framework involves completing in-depth corporate and community greenhouse gas inventory and forecast. So setting a GHG reduction target by 45% by 2030 and 100 by 2050, developing a local action plan, implementing the plan, monitoring progress, and reporting results. So far, so good. Consider the clientele's Global Climate Intelligence Group World Climate Declaration signed by now 1,919 scientists since August 2023, stating that in fact there is no climate emergency. Natural as well as anthropogenic factors cause warming. The Geological Archive reveals that Earth's climate has varied as long as the planet has existed, with natural cold and warm phases. The Little Ice Age ended as recently as 1850. Therefore, it's no surprise we're now experiencing a period of warming. Climate policy relies on inadequate models. Climate models have many shortcomings and are not remotely plausible as policy tools. I have some background in statistics, and the idea of a climate, of a global climate, is a statistical aggregate that could have variations of plus or minus 5 degrees of mean. So there's a lot of variation. So it's not an actual thing. It's an idea that's dependent on modeling. So it's not only exaggerating the effect of greenhouse gases, but also ignores the fact that enriching the atmosphere with CO2 is beneficial for plant growth and necessary. So CO2 is a plant food, profitable for agriculture, increasing yields of crops worldwide. If you only looked at the number of trees in Canada, it would offset its total carbon emissions and then leave a good 2/3 of them unemployed, able to offset more carbon emissions. So Canada is a carbon sink. Climate policy must respect scientific and economic realities. There's no climate emergency. Therefore, there's no cause for panic and alarm. We strongly oppose the harmful and unrealistic net zero CO2 policy proposed for 2050. Instead, we propose going for adaptation instead of mitigation. Human factors aren't a factor. Their contribution is negligible, less than 1%, and so adaptation will work whatever the cause. Official plans based on sustainable development restrict private property rights and severances, target mobility, drive future population growth to selected settlement areas, and reduce tax revenue and services to smaller municipalities. We see the results. Our towns have turned into villages, hamlets, to ghost towns. Once families for generations, rural homes have been sold off to foreign investors. The land's left unoccupied. Cities are overwhelmed with healthcare, homelessness, housing, and mental health crisis. I used to work in London in the field, I can attest. Participating in the PCP and adopting compliant plans binds council and municipality to UN directives. The PCP elected official and corporate staff on file will continually put before council items which, if approved, will redirect public funds and assets to private development goals and foreign investors under the guise of saving the planet. Staff, committee, and council time will be taken up reviewing, approving, and implementing a foreign agenda, and councillors who oppose the UN directives will face the Integrity Commissioner. The Integrity Commissioner, who is now bound to the Council's past decision to adopt the PCP program. Catch-22. Further considerations: regardless of Canada being a UN member, no level of government has the authority to implement foreign mandates, policies, treaties, or any agreements that violate the Canadian Constitution, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the Bill of Rights, or the Coronation Oath. Conspiring with foreign powers to assist in any act preparatory to the takeover of our nation's an act of treason, according to Section 46, subsection 1 of the Canadian Criminal Code. Thankfully, the PCP is completely voluntary, and the council can make a motion to leave at any time. The council is the municipality's governing body, the custodian of its powers. The councillors alone exercise the power of the municipality through bylaws and resolutions. Councils have a duty, therefore, to represent the public and protect the integrity of their positions. You who are elected are the government, and we appreciate that. The city staff is not the government. Those who are elected have the power and the authority. The Government of Canada and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities have waived liability on this program, leaving council liable for endorsing and implementing the Sustainable Development Action Items programs. Better make real sure the science is sound. The residents of Bayham want to support you. Ta-da! In asserting your authority over these voluntary programs and hope that you will appreciate our efforts to inform you of the harms and disadvantages of endorsing the program. We have lots of references and resource material after the deputation to provide you. We recommend that Council 1 be directed to review the Primer of 1994 and World Climate Declaration of 2023. That Council's resolution to be verified by the clerk referenced in the June 21, 2018 meeting to approve the municipality of Bayham's participation in the Partners for Climate Protection Program be reconsidered in accordance with section 11.25 of the procedural bylaw number 2023-21 in light of accurate, impartial, scientific evidence. Current government representatives have been found guilty of manipulating evidence and misleading the public at high levels of court. That councillors rescind, number 2, the original resolution to join the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Partners for Climate Protection Program. Once approved, council's decision-making authority and the rights of members of the public will be protected from the harms of implementing UN directives. In closing, we hope that the council will be empowered to endorse a local agenda over a global agenda. And with that, I'm prepared to take any questions at all. I'm sure there must be many.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation, Vince. You mentioned you're going to leave us with a copy of the delegation or the deputation.
Yep, and some background material. Yeah.
Certainly appreciate that, and would appreciate the opportunity to give it a good read and study it some more.
Wonderful.
I'm going to open up the floor to council. Do you have any questions for Vincent this evening? We need to see the material, but thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
I certainly do appreciate
Pleasure.
it.
Thank you.
Okay. Typically, under procedural bylaws, we don't do that in council chambers, but okay.
Very gracious.
All right, thank you. So thank you again, and please, yes, provide the clerk with the materials, and we'll get them distributed to council members and have an opportunity to review, and thank you very much for that. Okay. We have a motion that reads that the delegation from Vincent Lizotte regarding the 2018 Municipal Energy Plan, Local Action Plan on Greenhouse Gas Emission be received. Need a mover and seconder. Councillor Chilcott, seconded by Deputy Mayor Weiser. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Section 7, adoption of the minutes of the previous meetings. These include the meeting minutes from the regular council meeting held May the 2nd, 2024, and a statutory planning meeting held May the 2nd, 2024. Everyone's had opportunity to peruse those minutes. If there are no errors or omissions, then I would entertain a mover and seconder for the following: that the minutes of the regular council or meeting of council and the statutory planning meeting held May the 2nd, 2024 be approved as presented. Councillor Emerson will move, Deputy Mayor Weiser will second. All in favor? That's carried. Skips us down to 11.2A. We have report PS 0824 by Ed Rollison, Manager of Capital Works. Water, wastewater regarding the 2024 roads surface treatment. Good evening, Ed.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. The report before you this evening is bringing forward information regarding our 2024 road surface treatment tender. Just for discussion point, Your Worship, members of council, road surface treatment is commonly our tar and chip program of typically our rural roads across the municipality. As a discussion point, the County of Elgin for a number of years has invited the lower tier municipalities to take part in a county-ran tendering process. However, this year, Elgin County did not have any road surface treatment, rather, that would include tar and chip, micro sealing, or micro surfacing. So the Township of Malahide actually stepped up to manager and administer this tendering process for the lower tier municipalities. So we thank the Township of Malahide for their efforts to take this on. And therefore, a tender PW 2404 was issued, and we have two contractors that provided bids. Duncor Enterprises for a total of $2,313,947.20, and Miller Group for $2,689,433.68. Duncor Enterprises provided the lowest bid, of which BAM's portion is $516,572. This, of course, is excluding the HST. Further discussion points, a total of $609,000 was budgeted for within our 2024 capital surface treatment projects. This, Your Worship, I don't want to jinx any of our projects, but this does look as if potentially that there could be an $80,000 savings if we award this evening. Further to mentioning Duncor Enterprises, Inc., this is a familiar contractor that we've worked with for many years and have completed a number of successful projects with this contractor. So with that, Your Worship, I have a recommendation before you, and I would entertain any questions if there are any.
Thank you for that report, Ed, and it is very optimistic in that we tend to be getting good tender results.
This is correct. This is correct. And maybe if I could just add one more point, a full list of our capital projects is listed on our municipal website, breaking down the anticipated timelines. So this includes double coat of tar and chip, which is typically road reconstruction, which would be about 2 kilometers of toll gate road. And the remainder, there's about 11 kilometers all total of work. The remainder, the lion's share of the work will be a single tar and chip, which is to extend the life of a tar and chip surface that's already been in place. So in and around 11 and a half kilometers of treatment will take place this year.
Okay, again, thank you very much for that report.
Thank you.
Again, I think it's a good example of working with your neighbors, of developing those synergies, getting a larger bid in place. It seemed to be paying off for us. Any questions from council members? Councilor Prose.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. And this might be a little bit off topic, but is the road I care about going to get resurfaced then? Can you just please touch on a little bit on what the process is, how you pick roads, and we get asked that a lot. Like,
Absolutely.
it's a little off topic if you're not.
Absolutely, through Your Worship to Councillor Froese. The means of determining the need of road work is a number of different things. It's past maintenance history from Public Works, its ability to comply with the minimum maintenance standards, which is a provincial legislation, as well as we have an adopted, endorsed by council roads needs study that breaks down the various road components. Traffic counts come into play, which typically also plays into the number of residents along that road. The plans and our designs in coming up with a 10-year plan in our capital, it can frequently change. It does frequently change due to significant weather events where maybe there's been some drainage failure of a road, or there has been maybe a very harsh winter that's taken toll on the road. The amount of shading from adjacent bush lines affects how the road might thaw in the winter months, or coming out of the winter into the spring, and how it may break up. Frost susceptible soils within a road, which are typically silts and clays, sometimes, don't be shocked, topsoil. It wasn't uncommon way back in the day that when Ditching would have occurred along roads, typically gravel roads, to provide for drainage. That spoil material would simply be broadcast back on the road and then be incorporated in as part of the road. So it's not uncommon to find frost susceptible soils within our roads. So there's not one single thing that determines our program. It's really a number of things. And actually, we do have a comprehensive list within our 10-year plan. So I encourage people to take a peek at that. And again, it is subject to change, but it does give residents and council an idea of when maybe road reconstruction is maybe coming their way.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Any other questions?
Your worship, if I could, sorry, if, go ahead. Yep.
Just a quick question, where can someone find a copy where can a member of the public find a copy that needs study to peruse it?
The roads need study, we have, I don't believe we have that posted on our website, but it can be, I can provide copies of that or information without a problem.
Well, supplemental through you, Your worship, it might be useful if some summary was posted. It would save a lot of phone calls and misunderstanding maybe.
Potentially, I understand what you're getting at. I would think that even looking at the 10-year capital plans, looking at when these things are highlighted to be done, should give an indication of from a priority of need point of view. And this is how they are attached. And I think Mr. Wilson's tried to identify. It's not any one particular methodology. It's a basket of methodologies from a roads need study to a condition of the road to the traffic to yada, 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 on down the road that contribute to establishing when these are going to be addressed. So, though these documents, as Mr. Willis has indicated, are available, should you just make a request, but at the same time, probably as much insight gathered from looking at the capital plan.
And in fact, Your worship and members of council, we will be taking part this year in a roads need update. So our consulting engineer, Spreet and Associates, will be undertaking an update. Typically, we try to do that in a 5 to 6 year window, because as I mentioned, roads are frequently changing. So we need to update our needs. And that's a terrific document coming from the consulting engineer. Further to mention, Your worship, if I could just briefly, regarding funding of these projects, our surface treatment in particular and our road reconstruction. We not only take advantage, obviously, of the local levy to fund these projects, but gas tax and OSIF also. So we're quite fortunate that we're able to spread that across a number of financial avenues.
Yep. Okay. Okay.
Well, will that do you again another supplemental? Will that Spreet study be brought before council and included in the minutes? All right.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you for your question. Any other questions? Well, Ed, this is a good news story, so keep them coming.
We certainly do our best, Your worship.
Okay. We have a motion before us that reads that report PS 0824 regarding the 2024 road surface treatment capital be received for information, and that the council of the corporation of the municipality of Bayham is supportive of proceeding with the bid provided by Duncor Enterprises, Inc. of $2,313,979.20 plus HST, of which $516,572 plus HST is Bayham's portion, and that a bylaw authorizing an agreement between the municipality of Bayham and Duncor Enterprises, Inc. for surface treatment services be brought forward for council's consideration. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councilor Emerson will move. Councilor Chilcott will second. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Which brings us to item B, report FR 0224 by Harry Bernick, Fire Chief, regarding the procurement and repair update on pumpers 1 and 2. Is Harry online with us? Good
Your
evening,
worship.
Chief.
Your worship, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, worship. The report before you explains how that during on April 15th, we had our annual pump test, which is required, take place. And during that time, pumper 2 failed because of a mechanical seal. The pumper 2 was at a place where it could no longer function as a pumper and needed to be repaired immediately. I give the credit to the people that were doing the pump testing, because they themselves said that they could not look at repairing that vehicle for approximately 3 weeks, and actually recommended that I go to another company. I contacted the other company, which in fairness is the company that we are going to be receiving our new pumper from, hopefully very shortly, as I'll explain in a couple of minutes, and the repair has already taken place. What is important to recognize is the fact that during the time that pumper 2, which is the Stratfield pumper, while it was down, tanker 2 has passed its pump test, and it fits the definition of a pumper. Therefore, at no time was the citizens of the municipality of Bayham at all in jeopardy. We maintained that we had an active pumper. At any structure fire, we would contact immediately Station 1 and Station 2, the Port Burwell Station, the Stratford Station are both dispatched. And also I made sure that all our mutual aid partners were aware of the lack of an active pumper. I'm grateful to the fact that during this time it was not required, and that I can also report that the pumper has been repaired and back in service. Unfortunately, unlike my previous presenter, Mr. Rolson, mine is not the good news story. Mine is the story of which unexpectedly this was $17,336.45 of an expense plus HST that we did not at all foresee coming. And it has already, as I said, it has already been repaired. And due to the fact of our fiscal restraint, it was important that I brought this before council.
Are you still with us? There you are.
I am, Your Worship. The other good news is that I can further on the report is the fact that I have contacted the company that is bringing forth our pumper 1, and I've been told that she will be ready and should be in service by the end of July.
Okay, thank you for that. Harry, what is the age of pumper 2?
Pumper 2 was purchased in 2009, so she's 15 years old. She's gone through, she's continually doing good job. There's very little complaints on this. This is unforeseen expense and a break that we did not at all foresee happening. We anticipate that it is my anticipation that when she finishes her time as a pumper, she still has a 25,000 gallon tank on her, and I maintain that I will keep that pump going and possibly turn her over to one of our tankers to continue with the capital investments.
Okay, I don't think you meant 25,000 gallon.
Sorry, 2,500 gallon. Thank you.
I can believe that one.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you for that. All right, anything else, Harry, that we need to know about tonight?
Not anything, Your Worship. Again, this was brought forth as a recommendation from Treasurer to ensure that council was aware of this unexpected major expense and the fact that it was unforeseen and had to be paid immediately.
Okay, thank you for that. As a slight anecdote, I'll let you know that I was down Tuesday night for their training. District chief informed me that whatever they did, that truck and pump hasn't run so smooth. So let's hopefully there's some good life left in that vehicle.
I'm hoping the same thing, Your Worship. I hope I will not be in front of you before for not similar, similar information.
Okay, thank you for that. Council, any questions for Chief Bernick? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question, Harry, what does that look like from a budget perspective for the fire department?
I would have to further go on to Mr. James to get the exact details. As I said, it was an unforeseen expense. It's hoping that through some of our initiatives of our ability to collect on expenses that we have with certain calls, that we hopefully will be able to make up some of that. Otherwise, it'll be coming out of the general coffers of the municipality.
Thank you.
Anything addition? Thank you for that report, Harry. We have a motion that reads report FR 0224 regarding procurement and repair update pumpers 1 and 2 be received for information. I have a mover and seconder, Councillor Chilcott and Councillor Emerson. All in favor? That's carried. Thanks, Harry.
Thank you, Worship. And if you don't mind, I'm going to take leave and continue on with what I was doing, sir.
Looks like it's a real struggle where you are.
I am coming home on Sunday night, sir.
But you're gonna miss breakfast.
Thank you, Worship. Bye.
Moving on to section 12, Development Services, Sustainability and Conservation, 12.1 Correspondence, and 12.1.1 to receive for information. 3 items. Item A, notice of public meeting regarding minor variance application A0524 Mauer. Item B, notice of public meeting regarding minor variance application A0624 Thiessen. And item C, notice of public meeting regarding minor variance application A0724 Thiessen. Does anyone have any questions, concerns regarding these pieces of information? And I'll entertain a mover and seconder for the following, that items 12.1.1A through C be received for information. Moved by Deputy Mayor Weiser, seconded by Councillor Chilcott. All in favor? That's carried. 12.2, reports to council. We have report DS 3824 by Margaret Underhill, Planning Coordinator, Deputy Clerk, regarding the rezoning application ZBA 1324 Dan Froze Farms, Inc. at 56796 Glenary Line. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. The report before you. Appointed agent Kimberly Muldar submitted a rezoning application on behalf of Dan Froze Farms, Inc. to rezone a property at 56796 Glenary Line. The purpose of the amendment is to rezone 2 portions of the subject land as a result of a surplus farm dwelling severance. The proposed severed lot is to be rezoned from A1 agricultural to a site-specific rural residential zone to permit a minimum front yard depth of 3.3 meters and a minimum lot area of 0.38 hectares as a result of the Glen Erie Line road widening required by the County of Elgin as a condition of approval. The proposed retained lot is to be rezoned from A1 to a special agricultural A2 zone to prohibit new dwellings. The effect of the bylaw will recognize the residential nature of the newly created residential lot and will prohibit new dwellings on the retained farm parcel, all in accordance with the BAM official plan. And all part of the clearing of consent conditions of Elgin Land Division Committee file number E2-24 that was conditionally approved February 28th, 2024. Public meeting was held May 2nd with no signed-in attendees and no written public submissions. The staff report regarding the consent application E224 along with the planner's memorandum was presented and considered and supported by council December 7th, 2023. The Land Division Committee conditionally granted that application on February 28th, 2024, including the condition for rezoning. Staff and planner concur the rezoning application meets the policies and recommend approval to change the zoning as stated. And this will be in accordance with our official plan policies and will facilitate the severance of a surplus farm dwelling. And I leave it with you, Your Worship.
Thank you for that report, Mark. Does anyone have any questions or concerns regarding this application? Seeing none, good job as usual.
Thank you.
We have a motion before us that reads, a report DS 3824 regarding the Dan Froze Farms, Inc. rezoning application ZBA 1324 be received for information. And that pursuant to Planning Act Regulations Bill 73, Smart Growth for Our Communities Act 2015, it be pointed out that at the public participation meeting held May the 2nd, 2024, associated with this application, there were no attendees, no oral presentations, and no written submissions received regarding this matter, and that all considerations were taken into account in council's decision passing this resolution, and that zoning bylaw number Z 456, 2003 as amended be further amended by changing the zoning on a property located at part lot 23 concession 2 known municipally as 56796 Glen Erie line from agricultural A1 to site-specific rural residential RR-51 on the severed lot, and from agricultural A1 to special agriculture A2 on the retained parcel as a condition of consent E2-24 to permit the severance of a surplus farm dwelling. And that zoning bylaw number Z 781 2024 be presented to council for enactment. Do I have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Chilcott will move. Councillor Emerson will second. All in favor? Yeah, that's carried. Thank you. Clerk wanted me to state that you are all welcome to sit throughout the rest of the meeting. If you were here for the presentation earlier, that's over, but still, we're glad to have you. You might find this a little boring, but still. Welcome. Run while you can, yes. We're moving on to section 13, finance and administration. 13.1 correspondence and to receive for information. We have several items. Item A, Prince Edward County regarding the national housing affordability crisis. Item B, the County of Hastings regarding sustainable infrastructure funding for small rural municipalities. Item C, Township of Manitowaj regarding the review of the Ontario Works and Ontario Disability Support Program financial assistance rates. Item D, Multi-Municipal Energy Working Group regarding wind turbine projects. E, Elgin County regarding the April 30th, 2024 County Council highlights. F, Woodstock, Ingersoll, Tillsonburg Area Association of Realtors regarding BAM housing market update for April 2024. Item G, Watson and Associates regarding Bill 185 comments regarding the Planning Act and the Municipal Act. H, Watson and Associates regarding Bill 185 comments on Development Charges Act. Item I, Port Purple Area Secondary Water Supply System regarding the draft minutes from April 24, 2024 meeting. J, the Long Point Region Conservation Authority regarding the April 3rd, 2024 meeting minutes. K, Long Point Region Source Protection Authority regarding the April 5th, 2023 meeting minutes. L, Township of Malahide, Municipality of Bayham, and Town of Elmer regarding notice to residents and property owners regarding noxious weeds. Does anyone have any questions or have any item that they wish to draw attention to? This correspondence file? I do have one question for our representative of Long Point. The source protection meeting was held 2 days after the regular board meeting?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do believe that is a typo. It was held the same night.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Your worship, I can speak to that. So it's two different groups of people. So those minutes are what got approved. So they actually are minutes from 2023.
These are 2023. Okay, all right.
From my
all right.
understanding of the correspondence. When they, yeah, because we get the minutes once they approve it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Did you have source protection update meeting on this year already?
Correct, yes.
All right. Typically, when I was on the board, yes, they were held in conjunction with the board. That's why when I read the two different dates, it confused me. My apologies. All right. Anyone have any questions, any concerns? Anything they want to draw attention to? I do appreciate the comments from Watson Associates on Bill 120 or 185. We had a bit of an update last time at council and they covered it up and I was certainly appreciative of that. Trying to give everybody the option to leave.
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment on the county council highlights.
Yep.
I don't know if someone new is doing them, but I really like the way that they're structured and I think they're very informative, but I was really equally impressed with the stats on the libraries. Just congratulating the county on their hard work with the library, and it is well used in the county, and the stats were really interesting. So if you have an opportunity to review that report, I recommend you do.
Thank you for those comments. Just to add and supplement to that, membership, or I should say, users are up.
Mhm.
Of course, a lot of electronic material art is going out the door, but still some of the hard copy, seems to be moving as well. Yeah, the libraries are back in business, you know, post-COVID and moving full speed ahead. So we're very proud of that. And I will take the compliment regarding the highlights back to, staff.
Please
Yeah.
do. Yeah, very good.
Anything else? Okay. We have a motion that reads that items 13.11A through L be received for information. Moved by Deputy Mayor Weiser. Seconded by Councilor Pros. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 13.2, reports to council. Report CL 0524 by Megan Elliott, clerk, regarding the procedural bylaw amendments.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to council. I am reporting back to you after in February when we discussed proposed procedural bylaw amendments, and was referred back to gather more information and report back to you with that information. So under discussion here, we have 4 main areas to talk about at the table. So I expect that we will be going back and forth a little bit. So the first one to do with land acknowledgement. We talked about the possibility of including this at the beginning of our council meetings or possibly inaugural meetings and all the different options of how we could do this. Upon investigation, I actually found a draft document that's attached here from previous staff that started working on that. So we already have a good start on something if it is something that you wish to implement. And looking into other municipalities as well, it seems that there is land acknowledgement policies that you can enact, which outlines when the land acknowledgement is read. So that could be at special events, flag raisings, it could be council meetings. And then it's noted that if it is council meetings or the inaugural meeting, anything to do with our process here, then that is reflected within the procedural bylaw. So a 2-step process there, depending on what you're interested in, that you could have staff bring back a policy and as well have us amend the procedural bylaw depending on what you're interested in. The second area of agenda headings. Attached to this report, there's a number of attachments with sample agendas because I wanted to try and give you a visual of what this would look like. So everything that we talk about from this step on tonight, I've used the proposed new headings because it cleans it up a little bit more. And I was making the assumption perhaps that you might like what was cleaned up. So for the heading specifically, we've condensed correspondence to be all one area so that correspondence would then just be for information or for action. Doesn't matter which department it's coming from. We've updated the staff report section for the categories of staff reports because we rarely, if ever, have used recreation, tourism, or economic development. And if so, it would generally fall under one of the ones that are currently here, more than likely under corporate services. We are proposing to still keep other business, but move out closed session and matters from closed session to be its own categories. This is the more formal way to do it instead of currently right now with our in-camera session being tucked in under other business. And proposing the removal of unfinished business because I myself have never used that section. I don't know if Bayham has ever here. Generally, if there's something unfinished, it's just referred to the next meeting. So those are the proposals there. Did we want to talk about that before I move on to the next part? Or would you like me to keep going?
Just a quick comment, Megan. I think it's possibly prudent to talk about consent agenda because that's going to affect some of the agenda headers.
Okay. So we'll jump down to consent agenda. So a consent agenda, as outlined to you previously, is a way to streamline the meeting by grouping non-controversial items together that are just to be received for information, that there is no direction to be given. So examples of what could go into this section would be the correspondence for information, could be external committee minutes, could be our internal advisory committee minutes, and it can even be staff reports that are just for information, such as the quarterly updates or other informational reports. So with that idea, if we implemented a consent agenda, that changes the headers a little bit because as noted, then correspondence for information is included within that section. So then the header then changes to correspondence for action. And then underneath consent agenda, we still would list out A through F of whatever's there like we do currently under correspondence. So there still is opportunity to have it right there for the public, for council. The mayor can still read out each item. It just wouldn't necessarily be that you talk through each of the items. You definitely would have the opportunity to if you wish. And as well, if there was an item that you wanted a further motion than to just receive for information, you would request that to be broken out as a second motion.
Essentially, Megan, that's what we're doing now under information. We receive for information.
Yes, your worship, pretty much. And then this title of consent agenda just allows you a little bit more room to put anything that falls under that category through.
Well, exactly. It would consolidate, for example, on our current agenda, 12.1 correspondence as well as 13.1,
Yes.
just for illustrative purposes.
I'm just looking through my example here for a sec. Okay. Any comments or questions on that before we move on, or would you like me to continue?
Deputy Mayor, yep.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. In the section, the example with the consent agenda,
Mhm.
when we're approving, just from a process perspective, when you're approving a consent agenda, we still have the opportunity to ask questions about that, the
Yep.
information on there. So I'm just wondering why open forum is after that, or if it would be better to be put up after the adoption of the minutes.
Through your worship, when I was compiling this, I did have that thought as well. But I have currently just kept that one in place, but that could be something if council wishes.
I think
And so-
I was just going to suggest perhaps your reasoning is thinking similar to delegations or presentations. Since the open forum is meant to speak to specific items on the
Exactly.
agenda only, then yeah, put it up early on the agenda and then move
Yes,
forward.
through you, Mr. Mayor, just because in that consent agenda, someone may have a comment of something that's in there. So if
Right.
we've already approved it and moved on, then they're
It's
making a comment for no reason. So I think it would be better to put that up.
Okay. What, Go ahead. I
No,
was going to
sorry.
jump in. Go ahead,
No,
please.
thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Just that, do we talk about land acknowledgement here, or are we gonna work on the consent agenda or the agenda format first and then go back?
Let's go back to,
Thank you.
let's deal with
Okay.
them one at a
Yep.
time.
Yep.
Since we're currently on the format,
Let's do it.
let's deal with the,
Mhm.
agenda format. One of the things that does take place at the county is that under the, idea of motions, notice of motion, whether they're statements by members, notice of motion, matters of urgency, those kinds of things. Is that something that's envisioned that could be incorporated in? Typically, we deal with announcements, but we don't offer any opportunity for statements by members.
Hmm.
However, I know as one practitioner who took advantage of that in the past and did it under announcements. Yes,
Thank
Deputy
you.
Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just one quick question. Under section 7, delegations and presentations, would that include statements from council? Or would we?
Which agenda item are you on?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, you're on,
I'm still on the consent agenda one. Sorry.
page 88.
Correct. Yes,
All
thank you. Because right under announcements is delegations and presentations. I'm just wondering if that is intended for public only, or would council be able to do something there?
Through your worship, that would be for the public that have registered and
Okay.
part of the agenda.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes, supplementary. Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I would be amenable to adding a section under announcements that's for statements.
Do you do it there or do you do it under motions and notice of motions?
Through your worship, there's a few ways that counselors can do this. The overall thing that council needs to be careful of is you're not supposed to really discuss anything that's not already part of the agenda. So you don't really want to have just an open floor for random statements that then go into full conversations that wasn't previously circulated. But there can be opportunity for something underneath other business or something for motions of notice of motion. So let's say, for instance, Deputy Mayor Weisler has something that you want council to consider. That would be utilizing the notice of motion because you're putting forward to say, I want to talk about this and it'll be at next meeting. Or if it's before the agenda is posted, then that's when it would be listed as a motion that then we would discuss here.
Okay. Other than, I would agree with the deputy mayor, move your open forum up on the agenda.
Mhm.
I have no problem with dealing or working with this version of 88, on page 88, I should say. Too bad we haven't got it posted so people can see it.
Oh.
Deputy mayor.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Is this, so we're looking at page 88 at this format, which has the closed session at 6 PM.
We haven't got there yet.
Wow. Okay.
We're coming to it. That's next.
All right.
I assume that's next.
Yes, it is. So this one's a little bit tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Or potentially can be. So there's opportunity for council to have closed session before the open session. This helps in a number of ways to, I'll just leave it at that, helps in a number of ways. So with the sample agendas that are attached, the order is just a little different because I had the attachment before the consent agenda. But so there's a sample one that talks about closed session first without the consent agenda. So then you'll still see that information for our correspondence for information and for action still there. Or the very last attachment that includes everything together with the new headers, closed session first and consent agenda, which then changes the header of the correspondence. So the way that this works is if you had closed session first, your agenda would note that closed session 6 PM, regular session 7 PM. You still have to open the meeting as in open, public. So the call to order technically would be public. People could be here if they want to be here to hear the call to order and disclosures of pecuniary interests. And then we move into closed session. And on the agenda, you see that in brackets beside the title as well, we would put that time. So it's obvious that that's at 6 p.m. Matters from closed session is technically done in open as well. So when you rise, that is open to the public if people are here. And let's say if that was at 6:45, we would just be on break until we got to the next header of review of items not listed on the agenda, which starts at 7 o'clock, which is then considered the beginning of regular session. The tricky part for us, when we right now start at 7 o'clock, then we schedule a committee of adjustment for either 6:45 or 6:30. Knowing the timelines and desires of council, we figured that a 5:30 committee of adjustment or a 5:45 would not have, we wouldn't have appetite for, as well as we wouldn't always know if there's closed session, but committee of adjustment notices go out 10 days beforehand. So then we wouldn't want to have committee of adjustment at 5:30 and then we're here until 7 o'clock. So with that idea, just reading here. With that idea, the solution that the CAO and I discussed was our planning meetings begin at 7:30, and we could note similar to that COA committee of adjustment could be 7:15 or 7:30, depending on if we have planning or not. And we could use the language of not before 7:15. So even if we didn't start until 7:25, that's okay because we just can't start earlier if for some reason we are caught up with opening the meeting and that sort of thing. Thomas, do you have more to add on that? Am I covering that?
Yeah, you're covering it pretty well, Megan.
Okay.
Just a quick point that this isn't a new concept. There are other municipalities that do this if they have closed session first, or if they're handling all planning matters at once. And we've chatted with Mark and we've chatted with Arcadis about this. So we could handle, in theory, planning meetings and committee of adjustment meetings because they both have public participation components at the same time. The way we get around this is being able to put out an agenda that instead of, say, 7:30 for a planning meeting, it would be not before 7:30. So as Megan said, the meeting can't start at 7:25 because that's a breach of the Planning Act. But at 7:30 or any point after 7:30, the meeting can be held because the meeting should have started and people should be in attendance by that 7:30 time mark. So it's a way of moving closed session first, combining planning in one section of the procedure. And the theory behind it, if combined with things like the consent agenda as well, mean that these meetings won't go as late. And then that's the inherent benefit to staff, is that staff won't be here as late, council won't be here as late. So Megan did a pretty good job.
So these, again, are just proposals to discuss with council if there is appetite to update anything. All of these changes would be reflected in the procedural bylaw to enact such changes. We will be doing housekeeping updates to the procedural bylaw either way, just for renaming the CAO/clerk and little things of that nature. So again, in February, when we reported, this is why we're just bringing it forward to see if there's anything further that you'd like to update.
All right. In my mind, we have 3 items that we're dealing with. We already talked about the possible format. Now we're on to the closed session and placing on the agenda. I know in the past, there have been times when we have started early and have gone into a closed session and it was fairly special circumstances. Perhaps getting some professional advice early on the agenda. That was one of the reasons we've done that, but it was more of an anomaly than anything. I'll look for comments from council. I kind of prefer things the way they are, but that's okay. I can change.
Mhm.
Not that old yet. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick comment. I don't have an issue with starting early, but historically, when we are in closed session, some we're a little bit longer than an hour.
That's,
And that's my only concern is if I'm afraid that it would be an inconvenience to the public if they're here for meetings and then those meetings are delayed and then they're like, it's a communication thing.
good point. Now, here comes a point, or a question for staff. Should the closed session look like it's going to go beyond the allotted time? Then what? Do we put it off and revisit at the end of the meeting?
Through your worship. So you definitely, regardless if you're done or not, you would start regular session at 7 o'clock. So then there's two things to balance there, that you try to stay on time, as well as there could be opportunity later in the agenda. Possibly that could be a different kind of header underneath other business for going back into close afterwards to continue, or you refer it to the next meeting.
Well, it seems to me, if you're going to be running short on time, if simply you suspend business at that point, move forward with your open session. And as you say, if council at the end of the day has decided they wish to revisit this at a later date, it can be done through motion, you can defer it, or back in camera after your regular business is done. Councilor Probst.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm with you. I kind of prefer it the way it is.
Oh, it's two of us.
There, Mr. Mayor. The one
Counselor.
thing about having it closed ahead of time, I think it might clean up those closed sessions and not let us go so late. Later on.
Not
If
necessarily.
we know there's a deadline, then they can finish. Instead of lost.
Comment? Deputy Mayor, Councilor, opinions?
Either one works for me. I have a concern about some people being able to get here for 6 o'clock.
Yes.
Especially during farm season. And you work out of town, so that would be my concern, although I feel for staff because they're here all day and then to be here till 11 o'clock at night and then still have to go further and drive home, that's an issue as well, so. Yeah, I'm good either way. One way, one person is gonna be out and the other one.
Okay, let's put a little more enlightenment to it. If we decided to try this, I mean, it requires changes to the procedural bylaw. Nothing saying that after a period of time it's not working, it can revert back. Just gotta change procedural bylaw.
And through your worship, just one point as well, with the overall of what we're looking at with the options here today. If council doesn't have an appetite for closed session to be first because we're afraid of the timelines or people getting here and all those sort of things, but there is appetite to try and streamline the meetings, I think if you were to go with the updated headers and do the consent agenda, then that will give us a little bit of that. And then closed session staying at the end, we still stay how we are. And then as we noted before with the anomalies of if we needed to bring in a different party to the closed session, we could always make a special meeting before the regular meeting to do so.
Right.
So there's definitely other avenues that will still be helpful. That's just what I wanted to put forward there.
Councilor Chilcott.
I like what Megan's saying there, because there's been closed meetings that have lasted 5 minutes, right? You're in and out and done, and then you're sitting there for 55 minutes waiting for the regular meeting to start. There's that as well.
Okay, so am I?
One more question.
Yes, please.
I don't understand how changing, so I just need some clarification on how does changing the consent agenda speed the council?
Streamline.
How do you mean that?
You've got two items of correspondence in your agenda as it is right now. They're talking about consolidating them. one motion rather.
Okay, is there some risk then that we don't pay due attention between ones that require action and ones that don't, because we're approving them all at once?
They're separate. Requiring action are separate from the consent agenda.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Yes, through your worship, anything underneath that section would just be for information. So even if it was a staff report, it wouldn't be requiring any direction or decisions. It's just to say, here's some information for you.
Typically, at the upper tier, the consent agenda consists mainly of correspondence. Received for information. So anyway, getting back here now, let's see if we can get a little bit of a direction here. I'm sensing that people are interested in looking at a refined or a streamlined agenda process. I'm not convinced that everyone is looking to move your closed session at the beginning of the meeting. Okay? So I'm sensing that let's streamline the agenda. Let's leave the closed session at the end for now. I mean, it can be revisited anytime. And then we have one more thing to discuss. The land acknowledgement. We'll let Megan catch up and then we'll talk about it.
Sure.
Okay. Ready. I certainly appreciate the acknowledgement. I think it is probably something that definitely should be done at least once a term. At least, that's a minimum, probably on the inaugural night. Whether it's something that you do every meeting is entirely up to council. In my opinion, I don't believe it's necessary, but I think it should be expressed. I know that both Councillor Emerson and I were questioned last year at Canada Day why there wasn't an acknowledgement. You know, if we'd have had this, would have been a simple thing to add into the agenda at Canada Day and would have sufficed some of the requirements or the expectations. So I think what the clerk has suggested, okay, you include it in your session, perhaps at least once a term, but if there are some special events, acknowledge it. And it's only a couple of sentences. It's not long. Councillor Chilcott, I'm not trying to minimize the importance of it here. I'm just trying to.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I just want to know how we determine which events we would make the acknowledgement at.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because the event that we were questioned at, we weren't even running.
Yeah,
was
but through
Canada
you, like, we should have a policy and a procedure so we don't get caught off guard. And if it's generally accepted that we should be doing those things, then we should be doing those things. If we don't do it in person, we should have somebody available that can do it at public events.
Yeah.
Like someone that's associated with the.
Municipally run public events, and that's the thing.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we just look silly if we don't do it, and we probably should be doing it. So.
Yeah, you good with that? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I've given this some thought. And I have a suggestion. I really appreciate land acknowledgements, and I think they're very important. I agree with the recommendation that if we did them at an inaugural meeting, like perhaps the first meeting of each term of council, that's great. I would like to see that in, if we're gonna do a traditional land acknowledgement, that we also include O Canada in that as well.
At the
At the
inaugural?
inaugural meeting. That would be my one suggestion. And my second suggestion would be that perhaps we could have the land acknowledgement posted somewhere in the chamber. I would like
Yeah,
to
that could
see
be
it,
done.
I would like to see it framed and posted somewhere.
Mayor,
Councilor Emerson?
do you mean in the chamber or in the building?
Chamber.
In the chamber.
I mean, it's something that, and again, I'm not trying to minimize it or anything, but it's something that go with the flag.
I was just thinking at the main entrance, it might be nice for just the general public to see. That's what I was thinking. And then, if you come in, you see that we recognize it. To me, it's a more appropriate place in the public building at the main entrance.
Agreed. But this is the corporate head. Here. You know what I'm saying? This is the corporate offices and the corporate place of conducting business of municipality here. In chambers.
Okay, I supplemental, I appreciate if that's the case, if we're gonna put it down here, and we're representing the corporation and our meetings are on Zoom, then it should be visible, not behind the camera. It's kind of like a statement of, non-important, less importance.
I'll have to ask our tech wizards whether you can come up with a page that goes prior to every meeting, both land acknowledgement statement. And move on.
Well, it could be right behind Tom's head too.
No. Well, I suppose, yeah, well, you can't read it, but I was thinking even if it was online,
Yeah.
it's up front, and then we open the meeting, carry on.
That's something that we can look into. Other municipalities have placeholder pages before they start their council meetings. We can ask around to find out, functionality in the process of putting one of those up.
But that's advice, like, it's an option, something like
Well,
that.
anything, because if you're gonna make the statement, you can't minimize the statement at the same time. So like, if you're acknowledging at the first of the meeting, then it shouldn't be, beside or less or anything else than what else is going on. That's just my opinion.
I agree. And in some respects, this is progressing beyond what the current policy from a proclamation point of view of Bayonne is. We don't do it.
I know. I have
Okay.
a problem with that actually, but that's okay.
Yeah, and that was 2-3 council sessions ago where that came from. Yes. Councillor Chilcott.
Thank you. I like the idea of putting it underneath the flag because they're both equally important. Canada and the statement, they're
Right.
both important. And if we can get a picture of that together, put on the screen right at the very beginning. I think that would be appropriate.
Well, we'll let staff work and see what they can come up with. I think. Am I getting a consensus across council?
Yeah, generally, but
Okay.
I don't know about putting it under because if that's a nation or it is a nation and we're a nation, you can't fly the flag of two countries, one under the other, or that's might be delicate. That's what I'm saying. It's like you can't fly the US flag higher than the Canadian flag. So you
All right.
better
wasn't my-
consider the importance.
That wasn't my intention. My intention
I
was
know,
that they
I
were
know,
the
but
same wall, the same value of importance. That's
Right.
all.
Right.
Megan?
Through your worship to council. So if you are interested in this, my suggestion would be that part of our resolution here today would have staff be directed to present a land acknowledgement statement policy. And then within that, report for information of how we can have a plaque and cast it digitally for the live stream as well. So at that time, so for procedurally wise, that would come to you first for direction on that policy, because then if that policy then includes further language in the procedural bylaw, then I can do that all at once with all the other changes.
Fair enough.
Fair.
Is there anything else that you need direction on as per your report?
I have a draft motion to see if it captures.
Well, that's what we're aiming for.
Okay. That report CL 0524 regarding procedural bylaw amendments be received for information, and that the proposed agenda headers, including a consent agenda and moving open forum after the minutes, be updated within the procedural bylaw, and that staff be directed to present a land acknowledgement statement policy for consideration and report information for how to post a land acknowledgement plaque within the council chambers and digitally for the live streams, and that language for including O Canada to the inaugural meeting be included to the procedural bylaw updates.
Mover and seconder, Counselor Emerson and Counselor Chilcott. All in favor? That's carried. Item B, report CL 0624 by Megan Elliott, clerk, regarding the 2024 municipal assistance, the first intake.
Thank you, your worship. Through you to council. Every year we have community groups requesting use of municipal property, roads, materials, and sometimes funding. So in April of this year, we passed a new policy for this process. And so there is going to be 2 intakes of applications per year. The first one this year was just a little bit later since we were updating the process. So this is the first intake here today. We got a great turnout of the applications. We had 10 submissions. So this is hitting majority of the events that we see. There's only a couple things that are later in the year. So I expect that they'll apply by the second intake. So within the report, I tried to just give a snapshot of what they were asking for and listing out their funding requests separately at the bottom as well for your consideration. All of their actual application forms are attached to the report for you to see as well. And at the moment, the recommended motion just says it's for council's discretion. So I do have our nice lengthy motion that captures everything we usually do for the events, should you wish to approve the request for the roads and facilities and materials. And definitely will need your direction for any of the funding requests. So I will leave it at that. And if there's any questions for the specific applications, then I can help you through that.
All right, thank you, Megan, for that. I do have a question when looking at a particular application or an applicant and staff comments are not applicable. Can I have a little more clarification on that? Does that mean that that particular application isn't in bounds with the spirit of the program, or is that I don't know what not applicable means?
So through your worship, for that application, there was no requests for municipal property or use of municipal property, roads, materials, staff time, anything of that nature. It was just a strictly funding request. So staff don't have a comment on who you wish to provide funds to.
Megan, and I realize the history with the organization is only a couple, 3 years. What do you know? What have we done from a municipal assistance point of view, say, the last 2 terms of council?
Through your worship, from taking this over and connecting the dots of whatever I can, it seems that it has gone through a number of different channels and at one point ended up being more streamlined to give 3 main festivals a total of $2,000 each, and to allow them to use those funds for what they needed to, as those were the largest, I'll say, community events that I believe were put forth. And then the approval for lands just came through council to formally approve that. So at this point, it's still a similar process. It's just more opened up to anyone who wishes to request funding.
All right, thank you for that. Comments, questions from staff, or excuse me, questions for staff? Staff always have questions for us. Councilor Prose.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Which one of the funding requests is new, or how come we're over the $7,000 limit
So just a quick note that historically Edison Fest, Beach Fest, and Watermelon Fest have received the funding. So that's the $6,000. The report before you is for 9,000. So the Canada Day celebration from the Port Burwell Historical Society and the Vienna Lions Club Kids Fest for $1,000 are new requests as of this year.
And through your worship, while council thinks about the funding requests, as noted in the report, we also want to remember that we may utilize OPP for certain road closures for parades if there is not staff available to do so, which those funds would come from this municipal assistance budget as well. We did not have to utilize that last year, but that was something that was put forward that of an option.
Whether it's Megan or Thomas, please remind me, during the budget process, we decided to trim down the number of, porta potties we would have standing on site throughout the season. And I thought the intent was that if we needed to, we could bring back for special events. Recognizing that, would it be the municipal plan to bring in an extra porta potty for the Canada Day event in Port Burwell? It wasn't requested per se, but
That would be a discussion that staff would have to have with the event coordinator. Mr. Adams is not available tonight for that particular question. I don't believe that question has been asked of him so far. We'd have to coordinate that specifically with the event.
okay, thank you for that. The reason I'm asking is I'm looking at the Historic Society's request for part of the funding request because they claim that they'd have to bring in double the washrooms that they normally do because we've taken them away. That's one thing that I'm reading in this request letter. The second is they assert that the requirement to have a raised stage for entertainment. I don't know, thought we did some pretty good work on a gazebo that would work for entertainment.
Who's asking for a raise?
The Historic Society. The Port Burwell Historic Society for Canada.
Mr. Mayor, we were in the old gazebo last time, I think, with a raised platform. Right?
You were. But it was then modified and brought down to accessible standards. Now, I granted it is on grade, but still, it's fully equipped for electricity. And
Yeah, you probably need to be a couple feet higher than the crowd, though.
why?
So people can see you.
Why? They're sitting at picnic tables
Were they? I don't know. It seemed like there was a pile of people standing.
at the back, but still, they're at picnic tables. I'm thinking of other celebrations that have been across the municipality where they're perhaps using either a pavilion up here in Stratford or a pavilion in Vienna, and without raised stages. I'm just saying, if they wish to do this, they can go ahead, but from a council perspective, do you feel obligated to provide funding for them to buy or rent stage? Facilities are available, is what I'm trying to tell you.
Well, aren't we providing funding that they can do what they want?
Yep. Council Pros.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. So if I could make a comment on the funding, maybe a proposal, take $500 from each of them, that would leave a little bit of room for OPP or porta potties.
All right, so proportionally, drag it down, or Counselor, would you go back to the same framework that we've had in the past, which was, you had $6,000 worth of allocations, but $1,000 reserved for these extraordinary expenses that make them along. Take the $9,000 current request, prorated over to 6,000, or to see what I'm trying to get at.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Counselor Chilcott.
Yeah, the more I'm looking at this, the more I think I need to bow out of this decision as being part of the, our Banff Historical Society.
You declaring a late conflict?
I am. I think it's,
All right, I would advise fill out the proper paperwork, please. And back away from the table. Thank you. Well, what would you like to do, council? I think we need to do a little more work in streamlining our municipal assistance program, but. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. This is a delicate dance because I'm encouraged to see that it's being utilized, but it's, of course, it's coming at the same time that we decrease the amount of funding that well, I shouldn't say we didn't decrease the amount of funding, but we changed, well, no, we kept it the same in the budget, did we not? Oh, yes, okay. So, yeah, okay, my apologies. I would concur with Councillor Froese that I would like to see some allocations to everyone. I do know, though, however, that the three main festivals really depend on that funding. So this is difficult to decide.
Through you, your worship, if I can comment that the policy that we just passed in April for this process does then open it up to be a mechanism for any of the community groups to apply. And the language in there does say that just because you were granted 1 year does not mean that you will get the same the next year. So just to say that that is what has been approved currently. So it's a little bit of a different approach this year.
Well, I've got a couple of opinions on prorating. And I think just as the clerk was hinting at, just because you received a particular application doesn't mean it has to be granted. That's kind of the reason why we got out of the grant program years ago. Councilor Froese.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, we did save $80,000 earlier in our report, so maybe we could just grant it all.
Different pot, different pot, Councilor Froese. Unrealized.
Pots could move around.
Unrealized. But very optimistic of you.
Oh.
Got a motion?
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. So there was a comment you made earlier, and I just wanted to ask a clarification question. Does the language need to tighten up a little bit here, or is it just we've had a great response and we have to decide how we're going to allocate the lesser amount?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just for context, so Elgin Incentives, similar program, oftentimes they receive more in applications than they do in the actual funding pool. So they base it on the quality of the application, how it meets the criteria. And then based on that, it's like a proportional breakdown. So not everyone gets all what they apply for. It's just the nature of these granting programs. So this isn't something that is inconsistent with other areas. I don't think that has to be adjusted in the municipal assistance policy. I think this is it's a good thing to see. It's positive to see that community groups are coming out and requesting money. Possibly this is something that we look at for the 2025 operating budget. If council wants to increase that number a little bit to recognize increased interest in the program. I think this is just, people are interested in putting on their own programming, and they're coming out to the municipal assistance for support.
Megan, if you got something crap.
Through you, your worship, I have language that speaks to the overall event approvals, but I will need more direction on what to allocate to each group on the funding. But if we want to focus on the other part of that, I can read out that if you'd like.
Well, all right. My read is that, there has been a suggestion that, the $9,000 in ass, be prorated over the, $6,000 availability. of Funds available.
It seems like the fair thing to do, because if everybody followed the procedure and got their applications in on time, and no one's deficit in their application, it'd be unfair to select one not to fund, so we either give them the full amount or prorate it. I'm with Dan on the 50,000 to say, so.
Pardon me?
So what it means is that if council wants to allocate 6 and we have request for 9, essentially what we're doing is we're decreasing everyone's request by a third.
Essentially.
Or we take someone.
Nope. Well, this was budgeted within the, that particular envelope, and I think you should stick to it. And I think, the fair thing to do, again, there may be some costing to come along if our staff aren't available and you have to hire an OPP for road management for parades. It's gotta come from somewhere. And that's why that 1,000 was left in there. I think it's prudent. But that's just my opinion. Council can do what it wish.
So if that is the proposal, so anyone that requested 2,000 for the motion, it would be how much?
1,500 or somewhere.
1,333,
All right.
And then the 1,000 one?
667.
Okay, thanks. Clerk lane, not the treasurer lane.
Had a motion to prorate it and let you figure that out later.
I guess so. That's what I already had there, but. Okay. So. The other thing to just touch on for what I'm going to read for the drafted motion. We implemented it last year for the approvals, and the language is included in the policy as well, that for any of the material requests, we will be requiring a deposit of $10 per item that's provided to us before they get the delivery of their items. So I have an overall motion that reads that report CL 0624 regarding 2024 municipal assistance first intake be received for information, and that all facility and road closure requests be approved, subject to the provision of a liability insurance certificate in the minimum amount of $2 million, naming the municipality of BAM as an additional insured. And that the request for a staff presence for road closure purposes be approved with the ability to utilize OPP as a backup, and if utilized, compensate from the municipal assistance budget. And that staff be directed to advise external agencies of the approved events and obtain county approval for use of county roads for noted closures. And that all material requests be approved with a deposit of $10 per item to be provided to the municipality prior to the event. And that staff be directed to conduct lawn and facility maintenance as necessary prior to the events. And that all facility rental relief requests be approved. And that the following funding be granted. BAM Historical Society for Edison Fest, 1333. Fort Burwell Historical Society Canada Day Celebration, 1333. Vienna Lions Club Kids Fest, 667. Beach Fest Committee, Bayham Beach Fest, 1333. Stratfordville Community Committee, Watermelon Fest, 1333. And that the municipality of Bayham reserves the right to revoke said approvals at any time for any reason, and approved timelines may be adjusted for the use of certain facilities or materials should they become unavailable due to construction or unforeseen circumstances.
Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Prose. Seconded by Counselor Emerson. All in favor? That's that. Opposed? Really? Carried. Item C, report CAO 1924, Thomas Thayer, CAO regarding GIS service agreement, Elgin County.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Quick report from me tonight. So in 2021, discussion commenced with Elgin County and lower tier municipal partners regarding GIS, Geographic Information System Services, and the potential for a centralized and or collaborative approach to GIS provision at a regional level. So in 2021, Elgin County entered into what is known as a regional government enterprise agreement with Esri. They're the primary GIS software company around the world, to obtain access to a significant array of their products for regional benefit. So all Elgin County lower tier municipal partners have access to the software through Elgin County as authorized entities through this agreement. This agreement was recently renewed operationally in 2024. In late 23 and early 24, discussion was had between Elgin County and lower tiers regarding the establishment of a shared service for GIS. The municipality was circulated a draft GIS services agreement on May 6th of this year. That's attached to this report. The municipality does still receive GIS services through the township of Malahide. These services have been in place for many years through an East Elgin GIS services arrangement. In 2023, however, due to staff absences and turnover, procuring these services in a timely manner was at times difficult. The municipality also receives planning-related GIS services from Arcadis in relation to land matters, so planning files, notices regarding road closures and land disposition and the like. The draft agreement would formalize a shared service with the county for access to additional staff and GIS resources at an hourly rate identified in Schedule B. Schedule B applies to additional services outside of standard hosting and data updates as provided in Schedule A. These are included. Gratis, and Marg is working with Tyson over at the county right now for updating some 911 numbers for multi-residential units. So this agreement is flexible in that it does not tie BAM to a requirement to solely use the county for GIS. It's simply an option and allows us another avenue to seek out resources should we be unable to do so either through Arcadis or through Malahide. This is very similar to other arrangements that we have with the county, such as human resources and IT and legal. So an executed GIS services agreement with the county would simply provide us with that other option. Given BAM's size, we do rely heavily on these existing agreements and arrangements for key service areas. So adoption of this agreement aligns with the 2023 to 26 Community Strategic Plan by engaging in partnerships and collaborative ventures to enhance our resource base. So we do recommend adoption of this agreement to provide us with additional service support. Mr. Mayor, it's with you and council for discussion.
Any questions or concerns? And thank you for the report, by the way. Personally, I think it's a good move for centralizing services, I guess you could say, achieving some synergies again with the county. See no comments and or questions. The motion would read. Councilor Emerson.
Are we saving money with this thing, or it's costing us more, or what are we doing?
Like that.
It's about the same. It's hourly rate. It's strictly cost recovery.
I think it's the only game in town. Malahide's getting out of business. Okay. All right. Motion reads, a report CAO 1924 regarding GIS service agreement Elgin County will receive for information, and that the council, the corporation, and municipality of BAM agrees to enter into a GIS service agreement with Elgin County, and that the mayor and chief administrative officer be directed to execute the GIS service agreement on behalf of the municipality, and that the appropriate authorizing bylaw be brought forward for council's consideration. Do I have a mover and seconder, please? Councilor Chilcott, seconded by Deputy Mayor Weisler. All in favor? That's carried. Brings us to section 14, the bylaws. We have 4. Bylaw number 2024-010 being a bylaw to provide for drainage works in the municipality in BAM in the county of Elgin, known as the Eden Drain Branch C. It's for the third reading only. Bylaw number 2024-25 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of agreement between the Corporation and Municipality of Bayham and Duncor Enterprises, Inc. Bylaw number 2024-026, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement between the Corporation of the Municipality of Bayham and the Corporation of the County of Elgin for GIS services. Bylaw number Z781-2024, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z456-2003 as amended, Dan Froze Farms, Inc. Dan, you broke it out? Thank you. And that makes it better for Dan. All right. So the first motion would be that bylaw number 2024-010 be given our third and final reading. Mover and seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Weiser, Councilor Chilcott, all in favor? That's carried. That bylaws numbers 2024-025, 2024-026 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Mover and seconder, please. Councilor Emerson, Councilor Prose. All in favor? Carried. And that bylaw number Z781-2024 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Mover and seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Weiser, Councilor Chilcott, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have no unfinished business. We'll move on to other business. We have the draft joint cemetery board minutes from April 30th, 2024. I hope everyone's had opportunity to peruse them. If there are any questions, we'll take them now. Otherwise, motion reads that the draft cemetery board minutes from April 30th, 2024 meeting be received for information. Mover and seconder, Councilor Emerson, Councilor Chilcott, all in favor? Carried. Recommendations from the joint cemetery board?
I can take this one, Your Worship. At the joint cemetery board meeting of April 30th, there was one recommendation to council. It surrounds a death tax. So there is opportunity to change where the death tax is listed within the cemetery rates and fees bylaw, from my understanding. That if it is put under general rates and fees, then we can be collecting it instead of paying out of pocket.
Correct.
Okay. So Mayor Ketchabah was there, and Councilor Froze is our chair of that committee. So that recommended motion is before you. If you wish for staff to make that amendment, that would come back to council for approval.
Getting more expensive to die. Not for me. Any questions? It's just passing the cost on, it's cost recovery. Yes. Okay. All right, the motion would read that the recommendation from the joint cemetery board be received for information and that staff be directed to present an amending bylaw to the cemetery rates and fees to include death tax administration costs under the general rates and fees section of the bylaw. Councilor Emerson, you'll move that? Sure. And Deputy Mayor Weiser will second. All in favor? That's carried. Which brings us down to 16.1 in camera. The motion that council do now rise to enter into an in-camera session at 8:44 p.m. to discuss a confidential item regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, administration, and confidential item regarding personal matters about identifiable individuals, cemetery board appointments. Mover and seconder, please. Councilor Froze and Deputy Mayor Weiser, all in favor? It's carried. While we're going offline for a minute, let's take a short break. Yeah.